I'm gonna go ahead and hit record. And we are now recording. I just didn't want to forget about that. Quick announcement before it leaves my brain. If you have not been on the e-learning platform today, I made an announcement both in the coursework tab and under news and announcements. Today is the final day of PTP 156. So there were a number of you that had, not everybody, but one or two of you had maybe an assignment here or there that we might have overlooked. So please
I
do
know
take
I
a
did. I'm
moment.
sorry.
Just please do take a moment before today, before 11:55 tonight. Make sure that there's nothing reopened for you. If I did not open it back up, it's probably something that I can't still give you a grade on. Believe I've opened everything back up that I could still grade. So everything, I have to have everything turned in by 11:55 tonight so I can finalize those grades and get them posted for y'all tomorrow. So just, like I said, peek through your coursework tab. Sometimes it's even easier to go look at the grade book itself and see if you have zeros pending. And if you do, see what the assignments are and then go over to your coursework tab and find them. Whichever method works for you, but be diligent, look through that. Anything I don't have by 11:55 tonight will be. That was my little announcement. We'll go ahead and get started on the chapter 34 review and just hopefully maybe Miss Deanna's just running a little bit late or she might have something going on. Could be that she just plans on watching it later and submitting the summary rather than being with us live. I haven't heard from her. We'll go ahead and get started. So just a quick review of chapter 34. You're going to definitely want to know a number of terms. You're going to want to know the definitions too. So I'm going to go through here first and try to get all of your terms at one time. Unfortunately, my day did not allow me time to like type this up and have it neat and organized. So I'm kind of sort of winging it for y'all, and I do apologize about that, but I'm going to get you the information you need. And that chapter 34 study guide that y'all are working on today, the answer key to that will drop in at midnight and become available to you. And once that happens, of course, you'll be able to access the answer key and make sure that you've got, that you're studying the correct information. So you definitely want to know the definition of neuron. N-E-U-R-O-N, neuron.
Mhm.
You want to know which nervous system controls all the other nervous system functions. Remember, we have like a main control nervous system. You need to know which one that is. You also needed to know the definition of afferent. That's A-F-F-E-R-E-N-T. And the definition of efferent, E-F-F-E-R-E-N-T.
Mhm.
Know the definition of dendrites.
Dendrites.
Dendrites. D-E-N-D-R-I-T-E-S. Dendrites. And you want to know the definition of axons. A-X-O-N, axons. Hang on, I'm trying to get all the definitions at one time. Know the definition of generalized anxiety disorder, GAD. Generalized anxiety disorder. And you also need to know the definition of social anxiety disorder, SAD, social anxiety disorder. Know the definition of bipolar disorder. Bipolar disorder. You want to know the definition of simple partial seizures. Simple partial seizures. Know the definition of psychotic. Know the definition of post-traumatic stress disorder, or PTSD. Post-traumatic stress disorder. Also make sure to know the definition of status epilepticus. Status epilepticus, that's EPILEPTICUS. Status epilepticus. All right, I think that's all the term definition ones. Let's see. You need to know what the somatic nervous system does, what it controls. Know what the somatic, SOMATIC, somatic nervous system. You also need to know which nervous system is divided into the sympathetic and parasympathetic nervous systems. So which nervous system is divided into the sympathetic,
Hold on.
sorry,
Okay, which nervous system?
is divided
Okay.
into the sympathetic
Sympathetic.
and parasympathetic. Nervous systems. So which nervous system is divided into the sympathetic and parasympathetic nervous systems?
Gotcha.
You need to know which part of the brain coordinates movement and maintains equilibrium. Which part of the brain coordinates movement and maintains equilibrium? You'll need to know which part of the brain contains gray and white matter. So which part of the brain contains gray and white matter? You need to know and be familiar with the functions of the blood-brain barrier, or BBB for short. Blood-brain barrier. Know what it does, what its function is. I believe the book gave you 3 or 4 bullet points on the matter. Make sure you know those. There is a section in the textbook where it's talking about antipsychotic drugs. And there are a couple of tables. One is labeled typical, and I think there's one labeled atypical. You need to be familiar with those 2 tables. There's going to be a question asking you which ones are considered atypical. Or it's going to give you a list of drugs and wants you to find the one that is not an atypical antipsychotic. Does that make sense?
Mhm.
Okay.
Mm,
Trying to tell you what to look for without actually giving you the test question.
right.
So you need to be able to find which product is not an atypical antipsychotic. There is also a chart providing you with details or various drugs that are classified as benzodiazepines. That is BENZODIAZEPINES. Benzodiazepines. Be familiar with those drugs. There's going to be a question asking you which one is not. So you need to know which ones are so you can spot the one that doesn't belong.
So on the study guide,
Mhm.
number 71, it said, what is the drug classification of diazepam? And the answer was like anti-anxiety, but isn't diazepam a benzo?
It is a benzo as well. Some
Oh.
of these fit into more than one drug class.
Oh,
On the
so
test,
I just circled B and D.
on the test, I can tell you the question is not regarding Valium or diazepam. And the item that is not a benzodiazepine is very clearly not a benzodiazepine. It don't even look like most of your benzodiazepines look. And if I'm not mistaken, the correct answer is very specifically labeled in the book as a non-benzodiazepine. So you might even want to look at those. There's also a section on attention deficit disorder or attention deficit hyperactivity disorder. And it talks about the various treatments that are available for both of those disorders. Of those treatments, only one of them is a non-stimulant. You need to know which drug that is. So which drug is the non-stimulant treatment for ADD or ADHD? Sorry, my nose keeps itching. Under the section regarding seizures, there is a seizure known as grand mal seizures. It has another name. Look up and know the other name for grand mal seizures. Be familiar with the drug classifications that are used to treat alcohol withdrawal. So which drug classifications are used to treat alcohol withdrawal? You need to know what is an epilepsy treatment. What is an epilepsy treatment? That stimulates the influx of chloride ions. So what is an epilepsy treatment that stimulates the influx of chloride ions? Under treatments for Alzheimer's disease, be familiar
Treatments.
under Alzheimer's disease, be familiar with the reversible cholinesterase inhibitors.
Okay, who?
Reversible cholinesterate, that CHOLINESTERASE, cholinesterase inhibitors. There is a question that's going to ask you which of these following is a reversible cholinesterase inhibitor used in the treatment of Alzheimer's disease. So you need to know what that product is. And you also need to find out what is a mild vasodilator, VASODILATOR, that is used as a treatment for dementia, DEMENTIA, other than Alzheimer's, ALZHEIMER''. So what is a mild vasodilator that is used as a treatment for dementia other than Alzheimer's? And you need to know, I'm not even going to try to put this one into a witty question. I'm just going to tell you, you need to know that the brain regulates the respiratory rate in response to respiratory volume and blood gas levels. So know every part of that sentence. The brain regulates the respiratory rate in response to respiratory volume and blood gas levels. And last but not least, I have a couple of drugs that you need to know the brand and generic names to. So make sure you know the generic name of Ativan, Ativan. Find that generic name and know it. You also need to know the generic name for Valium. Valium, Valium. Find that generic name. I believe that is the gist of your chapter 34. Does anybody have any questions regarding chapter 34? All right. I'm going to pause our recording really quick and all right, if you closed your eyes to not get dizzy while I relocated, you can open them back up now. So in chapter 37, one of the homework assignments you're going to have for over the weekend is going to require that you do 2 calculations utilizing 2 different formulas. You're going to use each formula to do 2 calculations, and there are 2 formulas. There is a video attached to the assignment, but while I had you all together live and, through the Zoom meeting, I wanted to at least kind of brush on it together before I just turn you loose with somebody else's YouTube video. So we're going to look at, as you get into tomorrow, it begins PTP 157, which is called Special Topics. There is a student syllabus that will be available under the student syllabus tab if you want to get a generalized idea of what we're going to be doing with PTP 157, but it's mainly going to focus on care of pediatrics versus geriatric patients. Both sets of patients have unique needs. Pediatrics, because they are newborn, their bodies are still developing, so some things are happening at a faster rate than it would for other individuals, versus your geriatrics, whose body systems have already began to decline. And so things are processing a little slower. So that's kind of going to be our focus over the next 6 days. That module will run from July the 1st through July the 11th will be the last day because of the way it falls with the 4th of July holiday landing in there. And then from that, we're going to circle around into PTP 151, which gets into some really good topics for those of you that have not been through PTP 151. That's when we go way back, when we start getting into the history of pharmacy, where it's been, how it advanced to where it's at now, and things of that nature, just to give you an idea of where we're headed. So back out of that rabbit hole and back to these calculations. So you're going to spend the first 3 days of the 6 days in PTP 157 focused on pediatrics, and then the second 3 days will be focused on geriatrics. So when we talk about pediatrics, we have a couple of formulas for calculating pediatric dosages. These are truly kind of sort of being phased out. However, they are still being placed onto the national exam. We want you to do as well as you can. This is why we still address them in the classroom to prepare you for the exam, because in the real world, they have phased out these rules. So the first one we're going to look at is called Young's Rule. And I apologize about the glares there. There's nothing I can do about them. I fight them every time we do a Zoom meeting involving them. So Young's Rule is we are calculating the patient's dosage based on this individual's age listed in years. So if you get something like an 18-month-old patient, you're going to have to take 18 months and divide that by the number of months within a year. And that example is going to give you 1.5. So you would list that patient's age then as 1.5 years. Most of these are not going to do that to you, most of them, because it's set up specifically for the formula. The 2 questions are pretty much going to provide you this patient's age already in years. So let's just look at, what if we had a patient who, I'm just going to erase this. And I'm gonna notate a little scenario over here. So let's say, and I'm terrible at guessing this, but let's say we have a 2-year-old that weighs 35 pounds, and I'm maybe way off on that. And the average adult dose, let me turn my camera so y'all can see. And let's say the average adult dose is 250 milligrams. And did I go way out of frame? Not entirely, but there we go. So Young's rule, and that's part of what makes this fun trying to do it on Zoom, because now my formula is out of frame. Young's rule says that we're going to take this patient's age expressed in years, and we're going to add that age to the number 12. We're going to divide the age by this new sum, multiply our answer by the average adult dose. So in the example I'm giving you here, I said that this patient is 2 years old. So we're going to put 2. Now I'm going to take that age again. That's 2 plus 12. And you don't necessarily have to put the answer here. I'm just doing it for the sake of easy to see what I'm doing. So now we're going to take 2 divided by 14. Whatever that answer comes out to be, we're going to multiply it by 250. So grab my handy dandy calculator. And if I take 2 and divide it by 14 and multiply it by 250, I get 35.714. So that tells me if I were going to use this formula to provide this child's dosage, then each dose should contain 35.714 milligrams. Now, I'm going to turn this back a little bit. Get our 10-minute warning. And right down here, I have Clark's rule. So with Clark's rule, we are now, instead of utilizing the patient's age, we're going to use their weight. Now, between the two formulas that we were talking about today, Clark's rule was the more reliable source, simply because it's basing this dosage on the individual's weight. As y'all know, especially these days, you can have a 2-year-old weighing 35 pounds, and we can have another 2-year-old sitting right beside of them weighing 50 pounds. The dose needs to be different, right? 35-pounder versus a 50-pounder. So that's why Clark's rule was considered more reliable. But I said in my scenario that the patient weighed 35 pounds. So you can see Clark's rule is set up to express that weight in pounds. And it's placed over 150. So we're going to divide the weight by 150. And then we're going to multiply whatever that answer comes out to be by our average adult dose. So with the scenario example I gave, let me just turn this again a little bit. So we have 35 pounds divided by 150. And I said my average adult dose was 250. So that's how I would set up my equation. And I plug it into the calculator just as it looks. 35 divide 150 times 250. And this answer gives me 58.333. And again, this would be milligrams. So you can see already, remember our Young's rule said to give 35.714 milligrams versus Clark's rule is giving us a dosage of 58.333 milligrams. So these two formulas, I want you to know now before you even start trying to do this on your own, they rarely produce the same answer. This is also another one of the reasons why they're kind of sort of being phased out. We have a couple of more formulas that have been created since these that are much more reliable and much more accurate. But again, they are still putting these on the national exam to make sure you can at least work them and calculate them. So we're trying to make sure that you can do as well as you possibly can on the exam, so we address it here in class as well. Does anybody have any questions regarding Young's rule or Clark's rule right now? They're not really complicated, it is literally just a matter of plugging in the numbers according to the formula that is provided. The formula is in your textbook, so it's not like you're gonna have to try to remember. And of course, I will post this recording up within the next couple of hours. So if you needed to, review or revert back to it, you can. I'm also gonna post it in the next module as well under PTP 157, so that when you get ready to do this weekend's homework, and that's when you really need to access this video, I'm gonna make sure you can get to it through both modules, since today is our last day in 156. Any questions, though?
I mean,
Alrighty, and like I
think
said, there,
I did this before.
yes, you have. You've done this with me before. And like I said, the assignment itself, it's not my YouTube videos, but there is a quick, it's less than 10 minutes. There's a YouTube video attached with the assignment that's going to ask you to do this math, so that it would be there, easily obtainable to perform the assignment. And of course, as always, if you get hung up over the weekend, run into a real problem, what I had going on this weekend has canceled, so I should just be hanging around the house getting ready for next week anyway. So if you feel like you need to reach out to me, don't hesitate to do that. Just give me a holler.
Okay.
All righty, well, we're down to only 5 minutes remaining, and if y'all don't have any more questions, I will let y'all go ahead and get back to getting your stuff done. Again, though, just make sure to peek through those assignments, make sure if you had any missing or if any of them have been reopened for you. Corbin, I think you were the only one that was like perfectly good. All your assignments were done. I didn't have to open anything back up for you, so you're good to go. The rest of you might want to peek back through.
Right.
All righty, well, I will let y'all get to it. Please do reach out to me though if you feel like you need me for anything at all. And I will see y'all back on Monday. All right, see you on Monday.
I do have a
Okay.
question,
Yes, what you got?
but this doesn't pertain to anything about the classes, but where I started at, so when I get to the end of this
Mhm.
like program, so I'll have to do all the stuff where it says like this grade was dropped.
Yes, all those
Okay.
grades, the assignments that were there before you actually entered the program, that's what you do as you come back into the module. And because you kind of came in a couple of weeks before the end of 156, when we come back around to module 156, you'll enter the module with us. You just won't be with us all the way to the end. They'll pull you out 2 weeks before.
Yay.
Yeah, you literally end right where you started.
All right. All right. Well, that was it.
Okie doke. No problem. All right. Y'all have a good
Bye,
weekend. Look
y'all.
forward to seeing you back on Monday. And again, holler if you need me over the weekend. Y'all have a good night.